is there any specific move you want to talk about? Like, I actually do think, by the way, the Jojo to Mad Lions one looks great. It actually looks great for both parties.
Sure.
It's really
I mean,
interesting.
Frisky's terrible, so like literally anything is an
Sure.
upgrade. And I'm excited. You know, what's interesting,
I
Thorin,
think
is
him and
like,
El Yo-Yo could be fire as well, though. It looks really interesting to me.
he's going to be the first North American import to LEC ever, which is actually wild when you think that this was formed over at the LCS, NA and EU LCS were formed over a decade ago. And yes, Destiny, who is Australian, played in both, obviously. You could say that there have been players that have played in the second tier leagues, right? Same thing with Korea. There's never been an import player.
Sure. Yeah,
you know, but Reckless is like there, right? But he's not in LCK, guys. Like there has never been. Yamada pointed out in Power Spike, obviously, that there has been a coach. He coached Live Sandbox, but he's the only person who has really been there outside of Korea at that level. Not even Chinese players, you know, have come over and played in the league. And so when we look at these kind of moves like Jojo, it's very exciting. It does give you like the what if question. You know, obviously we've asked in the 10 years that this show has been going on, why doesn't Doublelift go to Europe? Because I think he probably would have had a more successful competitive career, but he never made that decision.
There was a few, especially if you notice, we tended to pick the spicier ones, you know, the people who might have had issues with the sort of vibe in the reviews in NA, you know.
Right. And obviously Bjergsen is not NA, but he probably could have been better served by spending a good chunk of his career back in LEC. So a lot of the most iconic American players would have likely had more success playing in the EU LCS or LEC, because those teams did significantly better at international tournaments for the majority of League of Legends lifespan. So it is interesting that Jojo's going over there. You know, I think it's a mistake from Team Liquid probably to let him go, because I think he would thrive in that more rigid structure and, like, you know, have a better, you know, more robust coaching staff like he had at EG, as opposed to just like one dude on Cloud9 attempting to coach him. And I think that he's a natural fit for that roster. And I don't think that APA is a player that is going to like transcend to the next level and have the mechanical skill and kind of like innate talent that Jojo has. But for Mad Lions, obviously, this is an extremely good pickup. Like he's a great player. He's a great player who maybe fucked up while he was on Cloud9, but if he wants to fix that, and there's a structure around him that will help him, I don't think he's a lost cause. Right.
By the way, I even saw a rare example. This is incredibly rare in the modern day, Monty. Think about one of the most annoying things about having these like cultural fan bases now, like the French and the Spanish, etc., is obviously they get super butthurt over anything like that you mentioned about their players and their teams. This is how you know, Monty, that a stereotype is so known and well worn that they even themselves almost like jokingly embrace it. Because my joke when I saw this headline was, I said, if you're someone who has a problem, like if you're basically always late, it's actually a genius move to go to a Spanish team. And even loads of people in the Spanish scene were like, I have to give him it. He's got it on this one. Because if you don't know, in their culture, same with the Italians, by the way, they just do it at their own pace, is the joke. Like people are never on time of when they say, if they say like 10 a.m., they'll come at 10 past 10 or whatever. Like I've told this story before. I once did a Counter-Strike event in Mykonos, the little island off Greece, right? And we used to order from this restaurant near the venue, breakfast, Monty. Listen to the words, breakfast. And the guy would have it delivered at 11:30, and I would be saying, what's going on? It's breakfast. And what was happening was they were ordering it at like 9:30, but the guy was getting up on the sleepy island, Monty, like walking his dog, having a cigarette, like, I'll make it in a minute, I'll get it, having his coffee or whatever. And the joke was at the end, he would make the breakfast. It's like, whoa, Daddy, breakfast is over, innit? But the point is, so anyway, since in their culture, it just is a little bit more lackadaisical in that sense. But that's genius for Jojo. Now, if he's 5 minutes late, they're going to be like, wow, you're early. What are you doing here 5 minutes early? He cracked it. That's him. Monty, don't work harder, work smarter. That's what he's doing.
He's going to be wondering where everyone else is, and they'll just be at siesta,
exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, this is obviously a major upgrade. I don't think you contend otherwise. I do wonder like how much they're paying him, but if they were able to, like, I mean, LEC is so bad right now. If they were able to make it to Worlds with Frisky, like they should be doing much better.
Why not?
Jojo? Like even at Jojo's worst, he is still 2 times the player that Frisky was.
And you just think of this angle too, Monty. He's going to be playing against Caps and Larson and Humanoid. Like, I would actually be very interested to see what he'll do to his development as a player. Because, like, Doublelift didn't really need it because Doublelift really already had chances to play against top players and go to all the worlds and stuff. I want to see Jojo actually, like, have to, like, fucking cook, mate. Like, maybe he gets even better as a player.
Well, I think also El Yoya being there to boost him up is going to be amazing for him. Like that's a great, like, aggressive jungler who wants to skirmish, who wants you to play around his calls. And I think that one of the big problems on C9 was the fact that they appeared to have absolutely no in-game leader. And without that, Jojo really suffered. You know, I think we can look at when he was probably at his best on Evil Geniuses, and we could say, hey, he was playing with Inspired, who's a very active jungler who has a game plan within his mind, and that is the same of El Yoya. They're different. They're very different stylistically, I would say, but they are the ones that warp the game to their play style. And as good as Jojo is, he has been at his best when he has that guy. So, I think it's exciting.
Oh, it's a fire move. It's actually one of those ones where you don't see it coming because it's out of left field. And also, it turns out they weren't trolling because remember, this was hinted at like a week and a half ago where they were like, but no one knew were they memeing or whatever. Was it a real move, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's much more exciting than the potential G2 moves where it's like...
Here's the one thing we didn't address, though. I've realized the angle we didn't address, Monty. There's a very obvious elephant in the room for why this is the first NA to EU transfer and why Doublelift didn't go all those years ago and go and join a European team. Because if you were Doublelift back then, Monty, the only team you could have joined would have been G2 or Fnatic if they went to their investors and got a load of money. Like, it never would have made financial sense to leave a TSM team. Look, like, these orgs could pay you millions of dollars. So there's another problem. You know, all those people that were complaining on Twitter, half jokingly in the NA scene, commentators and figures in the top teams that were like, wow, this is what it feels like to have the talent taken. No, guys, this is what it feels like when your league is smaller financially than the other league. And now, if the player wants not only a chance in this, by the way, in this case, to be more competitive, but actually a chance for more salary, he has to go abroad. That's actually the biggest black pill for the LCS is you guys are saying stop like importing talent. Bro, it's the other way around. You might have to export talent. Like if they want more money, they might have to go and play in G2 or some squad like that in the future, which is kind of a bit dark because that has been the flip, hasn't it? Like the LEC spot costs more now. They've got all these fan bases that are engaged. It seems like the numbers go up for LEC. So actually, the other thing I worry about for the Americas is maybe you have even more brain drain. Maybe the next top player. By the way, God forbid a Blabber ever goes to Europe. What's NA good he left with at that point in time? You know, these are the players. By the way, you're all loving Masso now. What if he goes in 2 years to Fnatic or something? It'd be an interesting world.
I mean, if I was G2, I'd be making a play for Masu right now.
I know. You know?
Yeah. He had an epic tournament. He probably had the best ADC performance of any NA player at an international event ever at this World, just purely on an individual level. And this is coming on his rookie season. I mean, this guy I think is capable of some really great things. He's got an immense amount of mechanical talent, and also it feels like the ability to learn and grow. And he's been growing very, very rapidly. And I mean, we'll get into this later, but I think that for all of you people out there who are saying, we'll just develop NA talent, guys, why can't we develop NA talent? You guys keep giving the NA talent a free pass. You're like, all these pros just get recycled, and you're just like, one more year, guys, one more year, and Palafox is going to be world class. It's like, no, this shit happens fast. When you're good in the first year or two.
Monty. Here's how you can laterally figure they're not being honest. That's not a good faith opinion when they say develop NA talent. Because notice how, Monty, they didn't, when they heard Jojo got fired, go, please recruit Palafox. What, guys, that's the talent you said we were supposed to develop. We got him. You know the guy from NRG, he's here. Do you want him in Cloud now? We can put him in immediately if you want. Oh, you don't. You've decided already. You're like, I'm tired of playing with you, Woody. I need Buzz Lightyear now. That's what you've already done. You want Buzz Lightyear now. Exactly.
I saw literally 0 comments that said Cloud9 should really be trading the farm for APA now that they need a mid laner. Like, come on, guys.
Well, yeah, until they lost Summer, Monty, I was supposed to believe signing APA was the reason Team Liquid was having all the success. Now no one wants him. Everyone wants him kicked off too, understandably. He has got like 3.5 champions.
So I really believe that, you know, the talent, and you and I have seen this over our 20 plus years in esports each. It is extremely rare for a player not to develop into a world-class player within like the first 2 years of their
absolutely,
being on the professional scene.
Yes.
I'm actually struggling to think of a player who like 2 years after their debut just suddenly became really good. People will point to Smeb, but it was less than 2 years between when Smeb was really bad and when he got really good.
Yeah, exactly.
So the development, I think, even if they start bad, tends to happen relatively quickly. Like a player emerges and just is good. Like that's how it works. I mean,
even the ones where like obviously they got better. It's like you see glimpses though. Like if you think of like I'll give you a modern day example. Maybe people think FBI took a long while. No, I remember when they first put FBI in for that, definitely in like Golden Guardians, and you could see he had mechanics, mate. You could see something there. Maybe he hadn't like polished his game and learned to lane or something. I don't know, but you could always say like. By the way, think of any of the players in the Chinese, iBoy or Jackie Love. Like they all showed flourishes at the beginning. They just maybe hinted a bit or something. I'm with you. If you haven't seen anything for 2 years, they're not going to suddenly get twice as good, are they? Like, what would the reason be? They've been playing the game.
Yeah, and it's mostly like once you're given the stage experience and the resources of the coaches, like you either do something with that and are a human being capable of growth, or you're just not, right? You're just not that guy. And maybe you can get better, but you're never going to be like a sensational like superstar level player. And that's just been true over like literally every esport that I have casted or watched. Like,
by the way,
it just doesn't happen.
It's not even just NA, Monty. Like the one I've just realized, I always forget this detail. This is where it fucks with your head how long people have been in the game. By the way, Yike is 23 years old, boys.
Yeah.
We're all acting like these guys are all like 17 or something. You know what I mean?
Yike is never going to be that guy. You know what I mean? Like Yike is never going to be that guy because he's not that guy already.
Weird, Monty. Like I said, that whole thing where here's the thing. If you ask me about this G2 5-man lineup, I would agree. I think this 5-man lineup had a special quality where they did manage to sort of be fairly resistant to metas and constantly get back to the top. Obviously, they were incredibly dominant in Europe. But this whole thing people were doing, by the way, I actually think Yike is pretty good. I think you showed it this year too. But this idea that like he was like, it's impossible to upgrade over him. It's like that's also such a weak mentality, because I have to say, how sports teams work. It's not like they work based on paper strength anyway. They tend to work based on like other factors, So the joke is you don't even necessarily need a jungler as good as Yike. Maybe you need somebody who fits something else about the team. Like maybe you need a more supportive Jankos as jungler. Who knows, right? So I actually found even that whole conversation weird, where we were treating these players as though they were like, say, Hansama, as though it's like inconceivable anyone could be better than them. Like what a weird way to look at the game. They're not goats in that way,
Yeah. And I'm not sure that going to a rookie jungler is really the way of the world, especially because that might affect, especially the way Caps plays, and it might affect their ability to, but it really depends on how long Caps can stay good. Caps is 24. But I mean, at 24, a lot of players like tend to start entering a decline in terms of their abilities. And maybe that won't be true of Caps, but you do have to have a little bit of concern that the training wheels time necessary for a rookie jungler may be too long and may never actually bear fruit in the way that you anticipate. It may be too long and it may not actually work for it to be relevant to Caps, who's still at the peak of his powers.
I agree with you as well. Unless you get the craziest generational talent ever and you just lock into some like guy who just has like the Stefano factor where they just don't chalk ever and they always play amazing. Bro, can anyone really conceive that at 2025 Worlds, we're now talking on this episode's parallel equivalent for the semis? Like, can you believe, Monty, this rookie jungler in G2 is going head-to-head now with Canyon in the semis at Worlds. I think they can win and go to the final. Like, no one's going to be having that convo, surely. Aren't we all being a bit like delusional? Even think that. Like, the joke is, if I asked you right now, my old question at the end of the grilled interviews, that, you have to make a team to beat the aliens, right? Instead, we're making a team like LS did to beat like the Koreans. The joke is right now, you wouldn't take a rookie, you'd take Inspired. That'd be the play you take for junglers or Western team. Yeah, these are the people, because they're ready and they're showing you it right now that they can do it. Like the point is, I don't have to gamble on Skewmond if I can have Inspired. Can I? Because I already know what Inspired can do. I saw him do it, bro. You almost did beat them.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm skeptical that this is the choice. Like it feels as though, and I understand why they're doing what they're doing. They are saying that our floor is really high with our current roster, but that's not good enough. We have to make our ceiling higher for international events, even though they did place top 4 at MSI and probably should have made at least top 8 at this World Championship. They want to really like make that push, and they're willing to roll the dice that the floor lowers for that. I think they obviously know a lot more about the players that they are bringing on board and have thought about this, but it is an enormous risk. It is an enormous risk that they will no longer, easily challenge for Europe. I think the fortunate thing for G2 is that all of the other European teams are just GM'd so badly that it is hard to imagine that Caps alone could not carry them to further titles, right? Oh. Maybe MDK is kind of a threat now, but Jojo's a question mark after his performance. He didn't have a great year in Cloud9. Were there external factors to that? Is he remotivated now? Who the fuck knows? A lot of these other teams that maybe put together probably aren't going to have the strength. It looks like we're getting just another year of Humanoid on Fnatic. They're going to have to look for another AD carry, perhaps a new support at the same time, because like they bring in a non-Korean AD carry. Does Jun get kicked off this roster as well? Oscarinen is re-signed for I have no idea what reason. BDS has been more than the sum of its parts. Obviously, bringing in Irrelevant feels, I think, pretty good for BDS. But like, is that really like the piece you need to beat G2? It doesn't feel like it.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.